to Around the NFL, presented by Barefoot Wines.
The Around the NFL podcast. Got stuck in traffic on the way in this morning.
From the Chris Wesseling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. I'm Dan Hanzus with Gregg Rosenthal, a hero who was stuck in traffic, so the Zummy drop works.
Sometimes I think Zumwalt's just inside my own brain, or he's actually back there live reading it, perhaps.
Maybe this is all just what do they call it, a simulation in the end. Hey, Mark, what's up?
What up, biatch?
I know you're under the weather. How are you feeling?
This is a Watergate-level disaster.
Oof. What are some symptoms we're dealing with?
Black goo does not come from me.
I don't know if I buy that because you brought it up. Are you going to be able to do the show with us today?
I am attempting to. I cannot.
But you can't miss the Thursday preview show, though, Mark.
You're overrating my interest in the whole thing, too.
All right. How about this, Greg? How about this? Give us one football take and then get back in bed.
I think that Mike Vrabel is one of the most underrated coaches in the entire league.
Good take, especially in this time. It's not, with the Titans and all the drama.
I literally don't care what your response is.
Okay, wow. Later.
Clowns.
Wow. Toughie. Mark's not with us today, but in a way he always is.
That was rough. I mean, it was mean at the end. Clowns.
Well, he can get mean sometimes, as you know. As you know all too well, Greggy. This is the Week 14 preview. How about that? We've already previewed the Thursday night football matchup between the Raiders and Rams across the sidewalk. You taking the family or anybody? Are you going to that game?
I am not going to the game, no.
No, okay. And now we're going to get through the rest of the week.
I mean, if the Rams would have helped out by giving my daughter a little more enjoyment watching football over the last couple of months, we might be there. I asked her what she wanted for Christmas. She said multiple times a Rams win. It means that much to her.
So how old is your daughter?
11 now.
Okay. How old am I? I think you know. 42 years old. Your 11-year-old daughter's team won the Super Bowl last year.
No, I get it.
In February.
I get it, but it makes you a little less.
Just let her know that it's not easy. It's not. You can't assume success.
Not at all. She stays there till the very end of the game. She was so hopeful and kind of crushed last week. But I think seeing a loss in person when I expect it to be a loss would be tough.
I hear that. Anyway, so there's 32 teams in the league. Of course, 6 teams, Greggy, on bye. That's 26 teams. And divide that by 2, 13 games. We already did the Thursday night preview, so 12 games to talk about.
Our last buys of the season. I'm going to miss them, I am going to miss them.
I know the schedule makers don't keep fantasy people in mind, but hitting people with a 6-bye week in the final week of the fantasy regular season, I know you know what I'm talking about out there. All right, let's get into – we're also going to have a special guest because you just heard from Mark under the weather. Neil Reynolds, our good friend from Sky Sports over in the UK, will join us and draft on Mark's behalf. But let's start, as we always do, with the primetime games. It's time for Sunday Night Football pregame, presented by Barefoot One. Dolphins at Chargers. Once again, from across the sidewalk. They get a lot of use out of that facility. Stan Kroenke raking it in. Let's talk about an important game, I think, for both teams, Greggy. Let's do it this way, because the Dolphins – licking their wounds a little bit, pride maybe a little hurt after you go to San Francisco and you get humbled a little bit, both your offense, which had been unstoppable, and the fact that, the Mr. Irrelevant was the other team's quarterback for the last 3 quarters of the game and you still couldn't find a way. You want to prove to some people out there that you are legit and a contender. And the Chargers, as beat up as they are, they're still in the playoff mix and they kind of have to have it.
They do. I think this is one of the biggest games of Brandon Staley's career as a head coach. There's differing views about his future. Some people, I think he's going to be safe regardless, but he's got the Dolphins this week. I don't think they're going to win this game. They've got the Titans next week. I don't know if they can beat anyone that's halfway decent right now. They're not good at all the ways that you want to be good playing football when you're like, think about, all right, we want to be a tough physical team. Every coach says we want to be a tough physical team. They can't run the ball. They can't stop the run. They can't rush the passer. I wouldn't say Khalil Mack's been a letdown, but you need more than Khalil Mack, and he hasn't been an explosive pass rusher most of the season with Joey Bosa not there. And they can't protect their quarterback. That's a lot of things you can't do well, and it's one of the reasons why Herbert fans like myself have been, in defense mode, because I really do feel like this is a bad football team being propped up by a top 10 quarterback and not much else right now. If they get Mike Williams back for this game, and it sounds like he's trending back, that will help out the offense a lot.
Yeah, and I think what the Chargers hoped was that Khalil Mack was going to be their version of Von Miller, or what Von Miller was until Thanksgiving in Buffalo. Joey Bosa, that was just a killer injury for them because he is an elite pass rusher, edge rusher that would have changed things, and he still has no timetable. Mike Williams will be back, but again, last time he came back in primetime, all these teams play, the same 6 teams play in primetime. Last time he played was in primetime, and he re-injured his ankle, and I think the offensive line, you can't ignore that. I mean, you played without your starting center, left tackle, and right tackle last week, and you saw it. And it affects everything, especially when you take out Mike Williams as well. So you can't bomb away, and even if you wanted to, you're not getting enough time to make it happen. And it's all kind of a vicious stew for the quarterback.
Yeah, Corey Linsley, their center, who to me has been a bit of a Jenga piece for them all year. If you look at the numbers with him on the field and off, was back at practice, which indicates he's probably going to progress through the concussion protocol. Their tackle situation is still a problem. I think the Dolphins defense had been trending better until a week ago. Jalen Phillips is having a really nice season for them as a second-year pass rusher. I also noticed, by the way, that he was like the Ed Block Courage Award nominee? Is that what it's called? From his team. And he's a second-year player. That's unheard of. I looked up and down the list. He's the youngest player in the league to get that. So shout out to Jalen Phillips. But he's really been playing well overall. And then you flip it to their offense, and I think that was just a blip on the radar. I think they're going to smoke this Chargers team. I think they'll put 30-plus points on the board. I will be curious to see, and this is a game where I think they miss having J.C. Jackson. I know J.C. Jackson started out slow, but I think the idea of having J.C. Jackson is you can mix up what you do defensively a little more and play more press man coverage. The way that the 49ers played the Dolphins I thought was telling. Kyle Shanahan knows Mike McDaniel and vice versa. They had their cornerbacks up on the line of scrimmage, trying to press him, just trying to mess up the timing just a little bit. And it seemed like it did mess up the timing just a little bit, which spooked Tua.
Here's some data points, and I'm kind of with you. I think maybe obviously disappointing for Miami's offense, but there were still receivers running around wide open in that game, and Tua just had a bad game. So I don't think you could take one off game for the quarterback and say that this isn't going to work. I'd love to. I'd love to, Greggy, but I can't. And then what you said about the Chargers and their defense being what it is right now, I mean, they're averaging nearly 26 points allowed per game right now. That's 30th in the league. And the Dolphins, this offense, we know what they do to defenses that aren't ready. In fact, according to our research department, against bottom 10 defenses this year, which Los Angeles is, they're 4-0 and averaging nearly 34 points a game and over 420 yards. Woo! Can Justin Herbert, somewhat on an island here, keep up with this Miami offense? That's what you want to see. We know what we want here, Greg. We want a 42-38 shootout, but Los Angeles is going to really need to bring it on offense to keep up with this team.
Like one of the great playoff games of all time that we weren't around for, but everyone tells us, and if you look at the score, Kellen Winslow against the Dolphins, and that was similar to the
very dehydrated he was, I believe.
Game.
Yeah.
I think it'll be fun, but if I could lock 2 games, I would lock this one up too, but I'm not, because I like another one even a little better. But I feel great about the Dolphins.
Okay, great. Let's hear from Mike McDaniel, because that's always fun. Dolphins head coach.
To answer your question, he does have an arm. I believe 2 of them. And it is strong. I'm not sure how much he can curl, but he can throw the ball far. Very good player, challenging player that our guys will be up for and excited for the test.
Mike McDaniel on Justin Herbert. It's always that little extra, little itty-bitty thing that he adds. Justin Herbert has 2 arms, actually. Very matter-of-factly. There are parallels between Rosenthal and McDaniel. Let's just say what it is. I could see you giving a similar answer there.
I love Mike McDaniel. I didn't like, though, that you I think he's a unique personality, but I think you have privately questioned. You maybe just like he almost seems like he's from another planet. I think he connects with the players pretty well. I think he is who he is, and he doesn't try to be anything else. And I don't think he's like inhuman or lacks like understanding of emotions. I think he's good at that stuff.
I think everything you just said about Mike McDaniel, I could say about you as well. And I don't mean that as an insult. I don't think he's an alien. I just think he's a little bit coming from a different angle.
Yeah.
And the way he puts things, I just find him humorous.
I love him.
And as I said, I'm no Dolphins fan, but I think it's good that a guy like Mike McDaniel could be successful in our league, so we could have some other archetypes for what a leader of a team can be.
They got to win this game to set up the Bills-Dolphins game being as big as possible next week.
Around the NFL is brought to you by Verizon, the network America relies on.
Monday Night Football. No, this is wrong. The Patriots couldn't be in primetime again.
Well, you know what they would be in primetime 4 straight weeks, Dan, but they were flexed out of week 15. So just be thankful that we're getting the Giants and Commandos tie rematch in week 15, because that would have been Patriots-Raiders. But yes, they're in primetime again.
I understand New England has a big fan base because of all the winning. But on Park Avenue, were they aware that Tom Brady was no longer on the team when they made the schedule this season?
I've got a theory about this. You want to hear it?
Yes, I want to hear it. It's driving me nuts. It's not a fun team, by the way. That's the other problem.
Okay, I didn't really understand this as much before, but primetime game is a big deal to owners. You know?
Well, he's got juice.
And I think there was probably some trepidation even of taking this week the Chiefs and Broncos out of primetime, just because it's like the Waltons. They just joined the family. That was going to be a big spot, and we're kicking the Waltons out of primetime. I think the Robert Kraft juice is a factor here.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, another team that plays in the AFC East that wears green, who everyone will agree is a very fun team to watch this year, we're still waiting for a primetime game.
An owner without a lot of juice, I got to say.
The
old
10 a.m. Pacific time Jets. As usual. All right, let's get into this game. The Patriots need it. They need it in the worst way. They're 6-6, and you know, if not for Zach Wilson, their season might be over. Let's face it. But they did take care of the Jets those 2 out of 3 weeks or whatever it was, and got to the 6 wins, but back-to-back losses to Minnesota, which they played well, but not good enough. I wouldn't say they played well, but they played competitively. And then the Buffalo game in primetime last week didn't go the way they wanted it to. But Arizona this week, Vegas next week. Are the Patriots, let's start here, a little more above the treetops for Greggy, the former Patriots fan.
I'm a
the
fan.
Lapsed Patriots fan.
It's just not the same.
Is their season come down to they got to win these 2 road games?
Oh, yeah, because at best – their final 3 games, which include the Dolphins and Bills.
Cincinnati, Miami, at Buffalo to close.
I mean, you're certainly not sweeping those games. If you won 1 out of those 3 games, I would take it right now. So for any chance to make the playoffs and get to 9 wins, you got to win these next 2. And you probably got to get to 10 wins. But I'm going to keep it above the treetops, Dan.
Okay.
Because this game, it's 2 mediocre teams in my mind who probably aren't going anywhere. Patriots have a chance.
Sounds right.
I noticed when Kirk Herbstreit talked about Mac Jones in that Thursday night game that he specifically said Mac is gaining confidence in the people around him. I thought that's interesting. Kirk has a relationship with Mac Jones back to Alabama, probably at that little meeting and stuff. And it just goes along with this whole thing that Mac Jones hasn't been happy with the coaching staff the whole time. And that's what I took out of that. The gaining confidence was in the coaching staff coming off a nice game in Minnesota. And then everything fell apart there. That's number 1. Number 2, and this is juicy. This isn't breaking news, but I haven't seen it talked about anywhere else. I'm a subscriber to the Boston Sports Journal. It was a gift from our friend Mike Berkowitz. Way too many details. Take this out of the network show.
All right, keep going.
Greg Bedard writes it. Great writer. In the Q&A with the subscribers this week, which I checked out randomly, a lot of questions about Bill Belichick's future. Greg Bedard, who's been there a long time and knows a lot, thinks that Bill Belichick's job status is very much up in the air if Bill Belichick is not willing to have a plan for how to fix what is going on here. And what's going on here is A, the offensive staff, B, the relative understaffing of the coaching staff in general, and then C, the fact that Bill Belichick's all but running the front office all by himself. That he's basically coaching the offense, the defense, and the special teams now. Because anytime something wrong happens, he jumps into that side.
Yeah.
And he's doing the entire front office. And that if Bill, for whatever reason, pushed back and didn't want to start populating these positions, that this could be Bill Belichick's last season. Greg Bedard hasn't written this in an article. It was in a Q&A, but I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting.
Well, like you often say, Greg, when you come at someone for throwing something out there in a mailbag as opposed to reporting it with their chest and all that stuff. I don't want to make too much of it, but it does logically make sense.
He's not saying out of the blue either.
He's not getting fired, but it could be a situation where Kraft, another powerful guy with, a prideful man that has a vision for the organization, might give him an ultimatum, and then, there are a lot of egos there here, and maybe that's how it ends. Yes, and I'll say,
you better win this game, by the way. I think this game's a little dangerous. I think it's dangerous.
Yeah, well, let's stay above the treetops just a little bit longer, just because, I think that Belichick did kind of foul up, and I was defending him in the beginning of the season and through the summer, like, oh, they'll figure it out. They always figure it out. But I agree, like, you're seeing the frustration. You saw Mac Jones picked up by the cameras on Amazon saying, throw the ball downfield. This short game doesn't work. There's obviously frustration there. And then Belichick himself was doing his he does a weekly radio show up there in New England, and I thought this was pretty interesting what he had to say when asked about the offense and what changes they can make to kind of get this thing going.
Yeah, I think we need to do what we're doing better. I don't think at this point making a lot of dramatic changes is it's too hard to do that. If we can just do consistently what we were doing, I think we'll be all right.
I think that, Greg,
a lot of optimism
with Belichick is as close to you'll get as a public admission that he kind of messed this up a little bit. And it's too late to change things, and now they just got to find a way to make it work as it is, and maybe that's not going to be good enough. And you're right, as we turn, like, kind of looking at this game specifically, it should be a winnable game against the Cardinals. But do I trust this New England team to go on the road and win in primetime? I don't. I just don't think they're very good.
I agree. This is an Arizona offensive line that you would think the Patriots defense will scheme up pressures against and confuse and do enough to win the game. I do think they'll win. But they've struggled with mobile quarterbacks. Kyler looked pretty good coming off his injury, ran for 56 yards in that game back where they really outplayed the Chargers. And it was the first time we've seen Marquise, Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and Rondale Moore all healthy and kind of getting things done. And I just don't see a very athletic Patriots defense, so I could see it. I could see the Patriots losing this game. I expect it'll come down to the end.
That pass rush is going to be important for the Patriots, too, led by Matthew Judon, because Kyler Murray is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league under pressure. In fact, according to Next Gen Stats, his completion percentage is 42%. That's 27th in the league. Dead last in passing touchdowns. He has not thrown a touchdown under pressure this year, according to Next Gen Stats. His passer rating, 12.8. So if you get after him, he's throwing the ball for grabs. He's going down. He's starting to sulk. And this negativity machine of the Cardinals starts firing up. All right.
Check out that Monday Night Football recap. It'll be a banger.
Oh, yeah. Who are you going to get?
I think we got Nate Tice this week.
Oh, Tice. A Tice bomb. All right, let's take a break, and then we will begin our draft with Neil Reynolds. Welcome back. We have a guest, Greggy. He is the anchor of Sky Sports NFL. And our friend, Neil Reynolds. Welcome, buddy.
Thank you very much. Grandiose music for me. I don't feel worthy of it, but it's good
like
to
something
be.
regal for our Englishmen, our friend.
Absolutely.
It's like an
good,
anchor,
guys.
like stabilizing the rest of the coverage, not dragging it to the bottom of the sea.
And just so I'm clear, in terms of rivalries here, Neil, Sky Sports. Greggy does the Channel 5 thing over there in the UK.
Monday Night Football, yeah.
So you guys are kind of enemies.
No,
sharing.
because we don't do a studio on Sky Sports at that time of night, so I'm fast asleep, enjoying my beauty sleep while Greg's working.
Still feels like a potentially dangerous
I see what you're trying
here.
to do.
But if you want to be entertained,
check
us out on Channel 5.
Yeah, there's a whole 3 a.m. club,
MJD.
some dancing.
Neil, we need you, buddy. We need your help. I don't know if you heard Mark at the top of the show, but he's just not up to doing the Thursday program beyond that cameo. So now that we start the portion of the preview show that has a draft, I need you to step in for Marc Sessler and make some picks.
And I was thinking about that when you messaged me on the way in, and I was like, what an honor. First of all, it should be an honor, right? I think it's stepping in and drafting for Mark. I listen to the podcast all the time. I love the preview show. I actually listen to it when I'm driving to Sky Sports to do our Sunday show because it's like a 90-minute drive, and that fits perfect. But part of me just wants to pick really bad games to mess with Mark. What does that say about me?
But he kind of does that on his own in many drafts.
Actually, he doesn't need any help.
Please, it'll not only make this show better, it'll make the rest of the shows of the week better, make Sunday better. Let's do it.
All right, so let's get into the draft. And, yes, it is Gregg Rosenthal with the first overall pick. We only have 10 games on the slate here with all the buys. So go get it, Greggy.
Okay. Some are going to be surprised by this pick, but I don't care. Vikings-Lions is the game I want to watch this week.
Oh, the team of ATL.
We're getting behind the team of ATL. It's a very special honor to watch them, and I know it's not going to be there at pick 6.
This is a very special honor.
Ow! Is it mad to you guys that the people in the desert have the Detroit Lions as the favorite in this game?
I guess it's just recency bias, maybe. The fact that people are buying Dan Campbell.
Recency bias. The Vikings are 10-2.
But I think people are thinking, well, the Vikings had all those one-score games last year and lost them. This year they're 9-0 in them. I don't think there's a trust in the Vikings yet, but are people trusting the Lions?
I'm a little surprised.
Watch,
I think the answer is yes. You know what? It started as the Vikings being about a 1-point favorite, Dan, right after the Sunday games. And so many fans and presumably bettors have gone for the Lions that it's flipped around. And people think like, oh, it's recency bias, this or that. No, they're about the numbers. And the numbers, if you get
the sharps
down to them, the sharps are, but also the people setting the lines, like expected points added on offense, defense, yards per play, offense, defense. If you look at the Lions since their bye, there's no question that they're performing at a higher level than the Vikings, that they have a top 10 defense since their bye in terms of DVOA. That seems a little bit much, but a top 6 or 7 offense since their bye, that doesn't seem like a bit much. That seems very repeatable, and I like the matchup of that offense versus Minnesota this week.
It's incredible, isn't it? The Detroit Lions have scored 30 points or more in half their games. I'm still having nightmares about watching the Lions on Thanksgiving last year when Jared Goff threw like 35 swing passes out of the backfield. They transformed themselves. They are fun. I mean, who'd have thought that?
They blew out the Giants, then they blew out the Jaguars. Show me the Vikings blowouts that they've had.
They haven't had one. They've been involved with one, and it was when the Eagles blew them out. But, yeah, I thought watching Detroit specifically in Week 13, how sustainable it felt. This is no smoke and mirrors with DeAndre Swift healthy, with Amon-Ra St. Brown as a true number 1 wide receiver, with this offensive line's ability to protect Goff and let him be the best version of himself. It's all real. So I think they're going to continue to score points here. And I want to hear from Dan Campbell because we love to hear from Dan Campbell. They played the Vikings once back in Week 3. It was one of those narrow losses for the Lions and narrow wins for the Vikings. And if you hear this, you will know that Campbell is pushing those motivational buttons behind the scenes this week.
I mean, yeah, look, it burns me. You know, of course it burns me. I mean, that'll be there till the day I die. I mean, that's not going to go away.
Week 3 loss.
You know, it does. But I also know I can't wallow in that and let that pull me down. I mean, it is what it is, and it happened for a reason. And honestly, I think us losing, 5 in a row is why we're where we're at right now. So that's kind of how I look at it. Maybe we needed this to happen to get to where we're at right now at this point.
And if you don't recall, that was a game the Lions were ahead 24-14. entering the fourth quarter, and KJ Osborne had a game-winning 28-yard touchdown in the final minute, a rip-your-heart-out loss. So you know the Lions want to make things right after something like that.
Yeah, they certainly do. They play really hard for Dan Campbell. We all know that, right? But I think why this game's so fascinating is because of the world the Vikings live in. This will probably go down to the wire as well. Every one of their games has just been incredible. They start fast, they forget themselves, they make a play at the end, whether it be one on offense like a KJ Osborne or a Cam Bynum interception. There's always something that the Vikings seem to find, and even with Kirk Cousins not having the best of seasons, he's kind of has moments. I suppose these games are about moments, but yeah, it's incredible.
His year is weird. A lot of numbers aren't as good, and yet the team obviously is doing well. And when you watch, if you're watching the team, like how they're winning these games, he's stepping up and making big plays in the red zone. But it's those kind of in-between type plays that he struggled with, and we saw it again against the Jets last week, Greg, where he missed so many throws, left a lot of yards on the field, and yet their success in the red zone allowed them to escape with that win.
Right. I don't see a team getting better. I think a secondary in Minnesota is vulnerable. We'll see if Cam Dantzler returns this week, but they had a player, Akali Evans. I might be messing up the first name there. Duke Shelley, Pat Peterson. You can pick on this secondary, and Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator in Detroit, comes up with a great weekly game plan, and I think they're going to go pass heavy just like the Jets do because they see holes in that zone coverage, and I think Jared Goff is going to be able to exploit those holes. And, yeah, in theory, it's a big game for the Vikings. Like, they're playing for one seed, blah, blah, blah. It's the biggest game the Detroit Lions have had in 5 years.
Yeah.
Since the Jim Caldwell year where they were above 500 and they were competing for a playoff spot. So you can't forget that. But since then, they haven't competed for anything. They win this game, and then they have a game next week against the Jets, and it's on. Like, you are in the playoff race if you win this game.
That's why it's fascinating, isn't it? And I love to look at the stories as they unfold and how we maybe thought of teams and players in the summer, and it's completely different, but we wouldn't have thought Jamal Williams would be scoring 14 rushing touchdowns. We wouldn't have thought Detroit would put up this many points. We maybe thought the Vikings would be in the close games. They got on the wrong end of all of those last year. So it's just fascinating that the Lions have become who they are, and they are in the race. They're genuinely in the race.
But they have to win this game, or they're in a lot of trouble. The regression monster
yes. This doesn't get any better than this. My God.
You're right, Dan. The regression monster, is it going to come for the Vikings at any point? They rank outside the top 10 in scoring offense, scoring defense, total offense, and total defense. And then you pop the hood for the analytics, and it's more of the same. If this game is a blowout on Sunday, it won't be because the Vikings blow out a team.
No, I think it's
let's go, team of ATL.
I think it's again, it goes back to what I said. I think lots of players tell me, lots of coaches tell me, games are decided, and it's a bit of a cliche, but games are decided in 5-6 moments in a game. The Vikings are just winning all those moments. It doesn't matter which side of the ball
it ends now.
It is.
That Week 3 game ruined everything for the Lions. They flipped bodies, and now they're going to flip them back.
Dan Kimball will never get over the Week 3 game in 2022. Neil, you are up in the Marc Sessler slot.
Oh, okay. So, can I give him the Patriots and Cardinals? No, you can't.
No, you can't take the primetime games.
Off the board.
I'm looking at the Jags and Titans. I'm looking at the Chiefs and Broncos. No, I know Mark likes listening to the podcast. Mark likes an afternoon game, right? He likes a late afternoon game. So I'm going to go the Bucs at the 49ers. And I think this is fascinating for a number of reasons. We flashed up a lot of graphics on Sky Sports last week about the Miami Dolphins and the potency of their attack and how they were going to go up against San Francisco's defense, and it didn't matter. They still lost that game. If you look at the Bucs on offense, they're one of the worst offenses in the NFL, but they've got Tom Brady, which always is a factor. Tom Brady was not good on Monday night, and then he came alive against the Saints late. He wasn't good against the Rams. He came alive late and delivered the touchdown win. So you never want to write off Tom Brady and the Bucs, and so that they're interesting to me. And I think this game shapes how far can San Francisco go. How do you play around a 7th round draft pick in Brock Purdy? Because you have to play around a 7th round draft pick because there's a reason they were taken in the 7th round.
You know what's interesting though? It didn't feel like they were playing around him last week. they were very pass-heavy. How many times did he throw in that game? 37 times, and he didn't play the first series? I think they might be pass-heavy again because that's kind of how you approach the Buccaneers.
A lot to the running backs, wasn't it, though? That was 14 passes to the running backs, and they got Devin White. And
that's what Jimmy Garoppolo does, too, though, is quick passes. I think it's going to be tough to run against the Buccaneers. The 49ers haven't really fixed their running game with Christian McCaffrey. It's been okay, but it hasn't been as good as, for instance, Elijah Mitchell, and their running game was consistently a year ago. And the Bucs defense is good. This is probably going to be a low-scoring game. I think you are going to make Mark happy, though, because if ever there's a Brock Purdy guy, it's Marc Sessler.
Right.
Like, he's going to be all about the Brock Purdy experience.
And
you're welcome, Mark.
And, a low-scoring game, maybe less stoppages, maybe the clock, the time of the game could be.
I don't know. This feels like a punch fest to me. That part I'm not
that's
so
possible,
sure.
too. Yeah, I think the issue, this is how you diagnose this game. Yes, the 49ers are not as good as they were last week because the quarterback's not as good unless we have some type of magical story developing here. But let's see. And that's why it's good for Purdy and the Niners that they have a runway here before January to see if they can get this thing off the ground. And by the way, there was that report that came out about maybe Jimmy G can return because he avoided that dreaded harlot Liz Frank. I think it was clarified a bit by Kyle Shanahan after the fact that it'd be a huge surprise, paraphrasing here or maybe putting words in his mouth, if we see Garoppolo again. So really, this is Purdy's team here. They had a chance to make a claim on Baker. They chose not to. So here we go now. And my question to you guys is, we saw what happened with Tampa and on Monday night, and I think we all kind of enjoyed it because it was, who knows what happens with Tom Brady going forward. If this team gets its stuff together, does he play next year even? Maybe that was the less special Brady moment that we collectively got to enjoy. So I'm just going to kind of detach a little from the nostalgia of it all.
How many times have you said that?
I know, but you know what? He is a little different. He still missed a lot of throws, a lot of deep throws, especially in that game. They scored 2 touchdowns in their final 2 possessions. I just don't see where the points are for the Bucs in this game. This feels like a 10-point week for the Bucs.
It's just hard work, isn't it? And it's only a little bit of late magic. I mean, that couldn't have been a more depressing watch if you're a Bucs fan for the first 55 minutes of that game against the Saints. And so when Brady is able to deliver at the end, we forget about it. We just think, oh, what a great moment it was.
I don't forget about it. I feel traumatized. That we're
those
there.
First 55 minutes.
We're there on Channel 5 trying to talk about it.
Don't bring up Channel 5.
Every commercial break.
How dare you?
It's like, what more is there to say? Hey, can you start throwing to Mike Evans, please? That was like all we could think of to say. Can you do some hurry up a little bit? Because whenever they go into a hurry up, Tom Brady takes over, and it's like he's 25 again because he's calling all the plays. Like, can we do a little more hurry up? I do like what I see out of Rachaad White. Like, there should be answers, but I'm losing hope. I'm losing hope.
I get mystified when Brady makes those bad throws because, I imagine it's always a treat to watch Tom Brady, even now when he's 45 and at the end of his career. I was at that game in Munich in Germany, and you watch him warm up, and he still throws such a nice pass. And he had a really good game against the Seahawks. His arm strength's
still great.
The arm strength
his accuracy, I think, is where you're seeing the age show.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's disappointing. Dan, can I throw a few names out there for the 49ers fans?
Absolutely.
Jeff Hostetler, 1990.
Yes.
Kurt Warner, 1999.
I know.
Nick Foles, 2017. They can't give up on it yet.
Foles is a good one because on this podcast we had a huge argument whether the Eagles are worth even talking about anymore because they have Nick Foles in terms of could they win a playoff game or 2.
I remember that.
And we see what happened.
I remember that. Yes, strange things happened, but you named 3 instances in 35 years of football at
You've
this
got to
point.
now name all the others.
If there is a Channel 5 Sky Sports alley fight, like Anchorman style, what is your weapon of choice? And it can't just be a gun. I'll start with you, Greg. Your weapon of choice.
I mean, my weapon of choice is Maurice Jones-Drew. I'm just going to put him in front of me and see what happens.
Neil, you look like a Morningstar guy.
Yeah, I'm just gonna throw Rob Ryan at you.
I would just run. I would run. I can outrun them all.
You're gonna go MJD.
I'm gonna outrun.
You're gonna have a healthy dose of Rob Ryan. See how you deal with that.
If there's an alley fight,
you can't
running
get out,
away,
Greg.
that is an act of a coward.
Or at least like some Floyd Mayweather stuff where I just, ducking and weaving and you can't get a hand on me. No, not that.
Third overall pick, the Zoosa. Jets at Bills. Here we go. Very frustrating from the Jets side, obviously, in Minneapolis, that they failed 5 out of 6 times in the red zone. But you know what, Neil? You know what doesn't suck so much? The Jets were in the red zone 6 times, and that was something that would never happen with Zach Wilson at quarterback. I thought despite those failures down in, you can't ignore them, obviously, and the quarterback, Mike White, there's some blame there on him, blame on everyone for not being able to finish that game off. I saw more good things than bad things, and I'm very encouraged. I want to point to one play because I don't think we talked about it on Sunday's show. In the game, the Jets were facing 4th and 10 at the Minnesota 47 with 3:47 to play in the fourth quarter. On 3rd and 10, White dropped back to pass, got crushed, peeled himself off the turf, was not in a good place physically, you could tell. 4th and 10, he stands strong in the pocket and drills a pass to Corey Davis or 31 yards to keep that drive around alive. That's why Garrett Wilson after the game says, I would go to war for that boy. And that's why this offense, I think this is sustainable, that they're going to continue now to push defenses and be able to score some points. That said, Buffalo's defense embarrassed Mike White last year in a similar circumstance. 4 interceptions, sent him back to the bench, in fact. And the Bills at home, this is going to be a huge test, Greg, for this Jets offense, not to mention the defense, although I'm more confident in them than the attack.
Yeah, we learned this week that Von Miller will not be returning this season for the Bills defense. We knew he wouldn't play this game, but that is still
Well, he said last week he wanted to play this game, so that exploratory surgery. Let's hear from Von, by the way, because he spoke from his hospital bed after the procedure.
Bills Mafia was good. I'm good, man. I'll be right back, man. Mentally, I couldn't be in a better spot, man. And I think that is the majority of it, man. Don't feel sorry for me. Don't say I hate it for you. None of that stuff. Because I am good. I'm excited for the opportunity to show my teammates how tough I am, how hard I work, and, how important that this means to me, man. So I love you guys, and I appreciate you guys, man. All love and respect. Don't blink, baby.
It's a huge letdown, and I think they're a playmaking defense still, but they're potentially without Matt Milano this week, who's missing practice. They're potentially without Jordan Poyer, who's been on the side of practice. And those are some of the guys that would make big plays against Mike White. And I think Mike White will give you a chance to make big plays. I'm glad you brought up that throw because that was an incredible throw. And he's had some incredible throws. And I think the Mike White bill of goods that I've been sold is not the Mike White I've seen on the field the last couple of weeks. He is not Mr. Point Guard who's going to take a bunch of safe checkdowns and hit the easy stuff. He's not necessarily like a low-risk, low-reward guy. I see a guy who's 6'5", by the way.
Right, that
sneaky
surprised
tall.
me too. Yeah,
he's
in the Sneaky Tall Hall of Fame. In fact, I was stunned when I heard that.
6 foot. He's got a big arm. I don't know if it's like above. Yeah, he's got 2 of them, but he's got. I don't know if it's above average for an NFL starter, but it's good enough.
He's a gigantic human being.
Go back to bed, Mark.
And he's aggressive. And I wouldn't say he's shown great touch either. If there's been a downside, it's like everything's a heater. So to me, he almost seems like a guy who's making good decisions. I'm not saying that he isn't, but he's a guy who will take some chances, that he's a little more Ryan Fitzpatrick with a bigger arm. That's not a good comparison either. I don't know who the right comparison is, but I think he's going to take chances, give the other team another chance, but he's going to make some big plays because of that. He's not just like a boring backup. I'm kind of shocked Cooper Rush beat him out in a backup job back in Dallas. Granted, that was 4 years ago.
That throw he made to Corey Davis got us out of our seats in the Sky Sports studios. We're like, what a throw. And I actually stood up and went, there's Corey Davis. And the week before, I was like, there's Elijah Moore. I mean, it shows how much the offense has woken up with Mike White there, that some of these receivers that weren't even featuring in the attack have now become prominent again. And Robert Saleh couldn't ignore everything that had happened with Zach Wilson's play, followed by the comments, followed by the entire team getting on the plane wearing a mic. I mean, How awkward a moment was that? The team wearing the Mike White
It's crazy, and
T-shirt.
It's not even Jets. It's football in general, because this summer started with the Zach Wilson is good T-shirts. I spent money on one. I don't know where it is now. It's a rag under my sink. But the team is going to follow the quarterback they believe in. That's what we're seeing. And on the Buffalo side of things here, remember, these teams faced off last month, and it was the biggest game of the Jets season. In the Meadowlands, you felt a home field advantage, and they slowed down their attack. I think finding a way to neutralize Stephon Diggs changes a lot, and the Jets have the weapons to do that with Sauce Gardner, of course, and DJ Reed, who we just saw them do it to Justin Jefferson. And I think if you could do that, you put more pressure on Allen to find ways, and then he starts playing that hero ball. And, oh, by the way, that elbow injury that affects him, the Jets did that to him. That was at the end of that game.
Yeah, he had 5 sacks in this game. It was the only game where he didn't throw a touchdown pass. I think since that elbow injury, of course, he's not been quite the same. The turnovers have been there. He still can't be curtailed. He's going to throw himself in there and try and punch out footballs after interceptions and fumble recoveries. But I like that Jets defense as well. Dan, I'll just let you know, as a Jets fan, so I do an interview with the Jets. Jets are one of the teams that market themselves in the UK now.
Humble brag.
So
aggressively.
I'll wait for this bit. So I do a series of interviews for the New York Jets. I have a contract, so really, if they win the Super Bowl,
look at you.
I get a ring, I would imagine.
No, you do not.
Why not?
No, he's a team employee.
How much
money has changed hands.
Yeah, but you're like is that a I think full-time jobs get it. I mean, how many minutes a week are you working?
Let's see
how many minutes per week are you working for the Jets?
11 or 12.
I mean, I don't think you get a ring.
MJD got a ring with the Rams.
But he's the radio broadcaster. That's a whole game, pregame, postgame.
Look, Greg,
what about
it's not up to you. It's up to Woody Johnson.
Well,
Sorry,
the
Mr.
pre-interview
Johnson.
and the post-interview, all the work that Neil does, hours and hours.
I meant 11 and 12 minutes included that.
That's
Dan,
crazy.
Just what I was going to say, my point I was going to make is it's a great locker room. You know, you speak to DJ Reed, you speak to Solomon Thomas, you speak to Garrett Wilson. It's a really good locker room. I know lots of players come on and they do good interviews and stuff, but because I see them one after the other, I have a really good feel about where they're going under Robert Saleh.
It's crazy to me the Bills are favored by 9 in this game. I think this is a very tough matchup for the Bills, as we already saw, and it's because their line. The things we were concerned about coming into the year with the Bills, do they have enough secondary depth? That could be exposed here. How's their offensive line going to be? I think it's gotten worse throughout the season. I think Josh Allen had to bail them out a little bit in Foxborough with some just great plays, but they're not protecting him well. I don't think the Jets' offensive line is very good either, and so it could be just which defensive line wrecks the most amount of shop here, but 9 points is way too much for me.
And the Jets lost the offensive lineman Max Mitchell under somewhat mysterious circumstances. He's out for the year, was moved to the non-football injury list. George Fant is back. He's going to be at right tackle. I find one of the things about this Jets season, they zig when I expect them to zag and vice versa. So every time I think they're going to win, they lose, and every time I think they're going to lose, they're going to win. They win. I think they'll lose this game. I think the Bills are a better team at home, and yet
I think the Bills win this
Go
game.
figure.
I'm just going to say, though, if you've cost me my Super Bowl ring, me and you are going back down that alley.
It's not
Get the morning
it's
star.
not up
Straight
to me.
back down
Woody, if you're listening, Dan,
Mr. Johnson.
Dan deserves it more if it's going to be one.
I don't think the Jets like me so much. I don't think I'll be getting a ring. Let's take a break, and we will continue the drive. Welcome to Around the NFL, presented by Barefoot Wines. The Cleveland Browns and their quarterback, Deshaun Watson. The second game for Watson now. I don't know how long it's going to take for Watson to knock the rust off. It might, hell, wouldn't it be terrible if it never happened? What a shame that would be. But Deshaun Watson now travels after getting a layup in the Texans in his old home at NRG Stadium. He has to go to Cincinnati to play a Bengals team that is absolutely locked in right now. And I, as I've said on this podcast, I've always liked Joe Burrow, but this season, I'm just even more impressed with the way he plays the game, the way he carries himself, the way he dresses. I think in another world, like if I could be somebody, like Joe Burrow might be the guy I would want to be. A guy that's so talented, good-looking dude, charismatic. Guy's swaggy too, Greggy. Something that I will never be. So here we are now. With the Bengals ready to stack another win and take it to a division rival.
Yeah, and they look complete, don't they, now? I think the Bengals have been really good on defense the last couple of weeks. They've shown the different ways of winning. Samaje Perine going over 100 yards. You had, of course, shutting down Derrick Henry. That's not always how we associate the Bengals with playing. So we know about Joe Burrow, he's just that. To me, he's like the old sort of, we described the quarterbacks in the 80s, like the gunslingers, like, John Elway throw 5 interceptions and he doesn't care, he'll keep coming, or
right.
Brett Favre in the 90s. Joe Burrow can take 5 sacks, throw 2 interceptions, and then throw a game winner down the stretch. So I really like the Bengals. I think they are a very well-rounded team. I think we pay so much attention to their offense. I didn't expect them to be as good as they've been on defense in recent weeks.
Yeah, and even in the first month of the season, they've had ups and downs, and they're not great at cornerback, and they're not great when they play the Browns. But otherwise, other than that Monday night game against the Browns, the Bengals are the best team in the NFL over the last 2 months. I think just because of the teams that they've played and the offense staying at that high a level, like they'd be right there with the Eagles and the Chiefs. But I think you got to give the Bengals even a little bit of an edge. And yet, after these last 2 games, you could argue that this is just as big a test of their toughness. They have lost 5 straight to the Kevin Stefanski Browns. They lost just back in Week 8 when this little run for the Bengals had already started, 32-13. You might think, okay, well, what about last year when the Bengals were actually good? They lost 41-16 against Baker Mayfield. Like, there is something here that they don't match up well. Like, it's a meaningful
It's too much
thing.
orange.
But I believed in Joe Burrow when he said a couple weeks ago, and I'm with you on what you're saying about Joe Burrow in terms of, like, you would want him
not being swaggy.
your team. No, I wanted to push back on that, but try not to interrupt as much. You know that.
Well, if it's something that's
Dan
a compliment, please.
He wanted us to push back, and a tumbleweed blew across the desk.
I just like waited.
It was an eerie wind.
I mean, you're
Just
swaggy
silence.
in your way. I think we all are, you know?
Okay.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, Neil is the least swaggy of the 3 of us.
Oh,
so
wow.
That we've welcomed him to our shores. He's a great host, but
no, you got that British like stiff upper lip. You carry yourself with class.
Yeah.
Not a swaggering, charismatic man.
No.
Now he's through charismatic.
Charismatic as well.
Now that's a shot.
Wow. Well, you said it.
I didn't mean that. I meant more just saying like dress.
Brilliant.
I don't know.
Hey,
cockiness. We're obnoxious Americans here.
Right.
Wait, I wanted to get to my point.
Yes, please
here.
do.
I never did.
Oh.
It's about this
It
Browns
feels good
team.
to hurt your friends.
It's about this Browns team.
Yes.
And this Bengals team. And
or is it about the Browns team or the Bengals team?
It's actually about the Bengals team, but the transition.
This is going to be a really good point, I think, when he gets to it.
Great teams do win the type of games that they won against Tennessee the other week, where they kind of out-physicaled them on the road and came back in a big spot. Great teams win the type of game they had last week against the Chiefs, where they make that comeback at home against Patrick Mahomes. And great teams end this stupid Browns season, put them out of their misery, and get off the schneid against Kevin Stefanski. And that's why I'm locking up the Bengals this week.
He's locking with his heart.
Dan,
Okay.
I am. I don't usually put this much emotion on it because no result all season would bother me more than the Browns winning this game. But Deshaun Watson looked terrible last week. Let's put this miserable season of the Browns out of its misery.
All right.
Is that charisma?
Is
that what I'm lacking?
That's passion.
Oh, okay. I've got some of that. I quite like the NFL.
Yes, Justin.
While we're on the subject of people locking up the Bengals.
Hey, heroes. Before I get to the lock of the week, I have a question for y'all. Where do you nerds come up with these nicknames? Lock Zaddy, Lockfather, Lock Daddies? Get the heck out of here. The only family that matters when it comes to the locks is the Wessling brothers. And we've won 3 in a row and we're ready to make another playoff run just like we did last year.
What?
What is he talking about?
We're staying home this week. The Bengals and the Browns. Now, everyone says the Browns own the Bengals, but I'm not feeling that. Deshaun Watson, not only is he a terrible human being, but now he's a terrible quarterback too. Joey Burrow continues his MVP run. Lock it up.
Oh, I love it. You know what? That is the great Nick Wessling. I love that man. And we were texting this week, in fact, and we were talking a little Burrow, and I said, like, Cincinnati must be in love with this man, this athlete. And And I said, I wrote, he's like, this guy, he's carries himself with confidence and someone you could kind of get behind. He's got this game like Montana. They must be just obsessed with him. And he wrote back, they are, but not like past great athletes. People are super chill about it, almost like they have taken on his personality a little.
Oh, wow.
I like that even
That's
more.
Good. He's infecting a whole city.
And that's a great sports town and region. I think they understand what they have here. I'm with you. I think this is going to be a romp. I don't buy into any type of Stefanski.
I'm a little worried.
I like the Bengals in this one big time.
I do too, but I'm a little worried. I liked also that Tony Grossi asked Kevin Stefanski, considering what a big game this is for the Browns. We should mention they're 5-7. We've mentioned all these other 5-7 teams. Their schedule has some winnable games moving forward. Their numbers have indicated they're better than the record all year. So this is a big game if you're a Browns fan. And he said, are you trying to do everything you can to win this game? Would that include benching Deshaun Watson during the game if he struggles?
We've gone to it already.
And I was like, everyone is killing Tony Grossi in Cleveland for asking this question, but I love
They
you,
should
Tony
be glad.
Grossi,
At least it's a football,
for asking it.
At least it's a football question because we're not allowed to ask any other questions.
Yeah, exactly. All right, the draft now rolls over to Neil Reynolds in the Marc Sessler spot.
Fantastic. Let me just say as well, seeing Nick do the thing there, what an honor it is to be in the Chris Westlin podcast studio. It's my first time in here, so it's really cool. I'm going to pick for Mark. I'm going to give Mark the gift of watching what I think is the best team in the NFL. I'm going to give the Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Giants.
Oh, he loves the Giants, too.
I kind of hate that you
Okay.
drafted, I think, exactly how Mark would have. You might have flipped those two picks, but you ended up the same.
Me and Mark, we've got some kindred spirit stuff going on there. So I think the
You're going to go
Eagles-
over his place with some chicken soup? Not chicken, like some type of tofu soup.
Some sort of take him some noodles.
Yeah. Mark, how are you doing, by the way? Let's check back in with Marc Sessler. Mark,
I am having the time of my life.
I think you might be.
He doesn't need me then. He's
a little bit
absolutely
of a Ferris
fine.
Bueller situation unfolding.
He's under a blanket watching every Christmas movie he can think of.
What I have going for me is my raging apathy on this front.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, so there you go. Hey, this is a big game, Neil, for the Giants especially because they haven't won. They have one win in 6 weeks now, and you got Washington up next.
Yeah.
I know it's a tall task to beat the Eagles, but at least feel good about yourself in this game. Don't get your doors blown off in your building.
Yeah, and I think the Giants have found their level. I think when you look at how they started, there were a lot of one-score games, and they can go either way, but I think they've been fortunate in some of those games as well. So I think this is an Eagles win quite comfortably for me. I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. I know Mark spoke about this on your Sunday show last week. When you can run for 363 against Green Bay, then run for 67 the following week, and your quarterback throws for close to 400 and he's pulled out of the game.
Right.
It's, okay, which way do you want us to try and stop us? We'll beat you the other way. They are the most balanced team. Bill Parcells would love this team because it's all about the trenches and building in the trenches, and they can dominate both lines. They get a lot of sacks. They had touchdown runs against Green Bay where the runners weren't touched until they got into the end zone, 5 or 6 yards downfield. They just maul people. So to me, I was one of those early in the season. I was like, oh, are the Eagles for real? They haven't been where they are, in terms of earning that respect from the public. And I think now they are absolutely for real. And I think there's a separation.
I'm with you on that. There was some doubt for me initially, and
right?
I don't feel that way now.
No.
You just were pushing back because I had them as my Super Bowl champion.
That's why.
You're like, I can't.
Natural
I
resistance.
can't.
What's going on with Greg?
Greggy
That was
to
what
be
it was,
right.
Dan. It was you were thinking about Greg when you were thinking about
always.
the Eagles.
That's how
Always.
everyone thinks,
Yes.
right? That's how I imagine it all the time about me.
There's that swagginess.
Jalen Hurts is really improved as
It's about me.
passer from the pocket. He's accurate at every level. He's not similar to some of these other running quarterbacks in that I don't think he's better throwing on the move. I think he's actually better throwing from the pocket, and he's an incredible runner, and that's not really what their offense is about, is marrying those two, and that's fine. Everyone's got different strengths, but he has been really accurate in the intermediate level. They always said he threw a beautiful deep ball. And he didn't quite hit on it last year, but he is hitting on it this year in the matchup this week against these cornerbacks for New York. I think of all of their issues this year, I think their cornerbacks and their secondary and the injuries, losing a Torrey Jackson from a group that already was not very talented, is the thing that hurt them the most. And I think the Eagles are set up in a way, and you saw it against Tennessee, they can take advantage of whatever mismatch you give them, whether it's in the middle level, whether it's in the running game, or whether it's on the outside. And this week it seems like it's going to be on the outside, and you would expect them to crush them. The offensive line for the Giants is not playing well right now.
Can I say a couple things from that game? Shook had something he said on Sunday that then I watched the game myself, and I was like, I agree. It felt like the Giants offensively took some strides and had a little bit of more dynamic nature to them against Washington. I also thought something that we had been tracking, Saquon Barkley, did he look a step slow the previous couple weeks? Yes, I thought he looked good last week. I thought he kind of exploded through the hole a couple times, and I said, okay, I think he's going to be okay. This particular rivalry is interesting. So Jalen Hurts, 16-2 now in his last 18 starts in the regular season. One of those losses, and this kind of just tells you how much things have changed for this quarterback and this team. The last time they've lost 2 straight road games to the Giants, back in Week 12 last season, Hurts threw for 129 yards and 3 interceptions.
Ah, that's right.
And it's just like, I'm not saying that means a different regime for the Giants, the whole thing, that's something to keep an eye on. But I mean it more as like, it's hard to believe how much Jalen Hurts has progressed and become, to me, the MVP of the league so far.
And I love the way he carries himself. He talked in the Packers game, they talked about how he was telling the reporters leading up to it, he's the temperature of the team, and he didn't mean it in a conceited, arrogant way. He was just,
he's got to be that way.
You've got to be that. You've got to be that. And his growth has been incredible. But every time he goes to the press conference podium, you come away impressed by what he said. I mean, obviously, the son of a coach, has been around the game, kind of does it all the right way. And I think it's really good this season because his game's stepped up so much, and he has become, like you're saying, Dan, absolutely a justified MVP contender. We get to see a bit more and know a bit more about him as a leader, and I think he is fantastic.
He's a real deal,
very
like
smart
franchise leader, like Burrow, and they're from the same draft class. It's really crazy to think how that draft class, how good it looks with Herbert and Tua in the mix now as well. I love the Eagles that they never have to play their defensive players, by the way. It's such a luxury. Brandon Graham played 18 snaps last week. Josh Sweat, who's having a great season, like an edge rusher who makes $15 million a year, played 27 snaps. They just rotate him in and out. They're barely on the field because the offense is dominated.
Which is what they did when they won the Super Bowl,
right?
And they used to be able to rotate 7 or 8 guys. With Bill Belichick
that will pay off
that.
come January for them. Of course, the way football is, one bad step or a guy falling into you and all that gets thrown out the window. But having these guys juiced up for naturally juiced up.
But I quite like
Sunday for January.
Sorry, Dan. When you worry about injuries as well, I thought going back to the Packers game, there were so many Jalen Hurts runs where it opened up so much, and then he just went 20 yards downfield and then stepped out of bounds. We weren't seeing any. We weren't seeing any. Josh Allen hurdling or Joe Burrow spinning and falling on his back, and that was good. It was good to see that he will take a sensible approach because he's everything.
Greggy, you are up.
All right, let's go Seahawks. Panthers in the late window, only 3 games. I usually try to mix it up, but I've basically become a Seahawks and Lions house every Sunday in terms of what I'm watching, and it's always
You're
fun.
as varied as the NFL's primetime schedule.
I'm worried about this game as the world's newest Seahawks fan. I don't see these two teams as very different. They're very different in the way that they play, but just overall quality. So I went and I checked out the DVOA over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and they had the Panthers and the Seahawks about 19th and 20th each, and that checked out to me because the Seahawks have a great passing game and not a lot else that's consistent week to week. And you look at the Panthers, since they got Jeremy Chin and J.C. Horn back, that's 2 real deal guys in their secondary. They have a good pass rush. Steve Wilkes has them playing with energy. They kind of remind me of the Lions in that at some point in the season, the defense started playing with real energy, and even the numbers back it up that they're a top 10 defense. So I think they can match up pretty well and make this a slog and make this a nervous game for the Seahawks, who really have to win the games they're supposed to win if they're going to make the playoffs.
I know you guys have talked about Geno Smith, right? And it's all on Geno really at the moment. which is
we
weird
actually
because-
haven't talked about Geno Smith this season, and I'd like to hear more.
No, well, let's talk. I was going to say about Kenneth Walker in the game in Munich just disappeared, and it's actually I thought, oh, that can happen. It can be like a one-game thing where you build them up and you're doing your pre-game show and there's an hour of chatting and you're going through everything. So you build up Kenneth Walker and then you barely remember him even taking a snap and running the football. But that's been a thing, hasn't it? Which is a worry.
It is, but it's like they still find a way and they put up points and they got it done last week against the Rams, even if it wasn't pretty. And Greggy, I'm going to give you your tulips on this one. Which is different than the other one, so I don't have to put money in the.
I've stopped saying it. I've shown incredible discipline.
Do you know a certain rock star? Speaking of swaggy and charisma, a certain rock star offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers,
Ben McAdoo.
And do you remember what in part got Ben McAdoo poop canned right out of the Meadowlands a few years back?
I mean, you should give him the Presidential Medal of Courage or Freedom.
Just what is it, Greg?
For
give us the
choosing Geno Smith over Eli Manning and then getting fired the next week because of it.
So it wasn't the oversized suit at the press conference at the start.
So now Ben McAdoo was asked about Geno Smith, and this is what he had to say, the OC of the Panthers.
I have a lot of respect for Geno. The way he carried himself in New York, the way he handled his business, he's a pro. So it's outstanding to see him having the success that he's having in the years that he's having, and I'm a big fan of Geno. I don't know about on Sunday, but no, I'm a Geno guy.
Which is
said he was a leader too at one point.
You see that little that smile on his face there too, because this has been a good thing for Ben McAdoo and Greggy. Greg.
I always treat you with respect. As a man. We go back many years. And you know that I have respect for your Seattle Seahawks fandom this season and what you were able to achieve here with Geno Smith. My lock father. I'm going to lock up the Seattle Seahawks this week. And I ask you as a showing of respect to take this and join me in this lock.
Oh.
As a showing of the two families coming together to promote peace and prosperity. And that all our future children are masculine children.
Well, had define masculine for me.
I just hope that all of your children are masculine children.
You're putting me in a very uncomfortable position here, my friend.
Let the two families come together and let there be peace and prosperity.
I feel like you locking up the Seahawks.
Is that Steven Seagal?
I wondered when he was going to get into the accent. I didn't know
Okay, go ahead.
That's the greatest gift you could ever give to me.
I show my respect to you.
That alone is like opening up the beautiful present on Daddy Christmas this Saturday at the Rosenthal House. That's Christmas. I don't even need to lock up the Seahawks. This alone is a good.
Why are you showing me such disrespect by not joining me in the lock?
Making me do this accent is not a good present. I don't want to change my lock.
Whatever. I am locking up the Seahawks. I feel good about this game. I like Carolina's defense, and Steve Wilkes certainly has done a really good job, but I don't know if it's going to travel to Seattle and stop them from scoring 4 touchdowns. Yes, Justin.
The lock fathers may not be aligned this week, but you have a lock zaddy because Marc Sessler, absent from the pod, is locking up the Seahawks.
I always return.
Oh, yes.
Well, this was a very interesting moment here that Dan asked me to join him, and it ends up being Mark from his deathbed.
You betrayed my confidence in you, and now I must go to the other.
This could be a turning point.
I'm just enjoying the show in the flesh. Normally, I'm on a treadmill listening to it. Walking the dog.
You're an active part. There's a lot of things going on here. Before we say goodbye to Neil, I do want to bring up a very embarrassing moment. About 20 minutes ago, he doesn't know this happened, where I drank from his water cup.
Oh no!
We're sharing diseases. We're sharing
fluids on that side of it. I
Thank
knew there
you
was some funny business going on.
Did I drink out of it?
No, mine
after
was
you?
out, and it got confusing, and now
I'm not worried
I
about
have major regrets.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a regret for you. I'm just making sure I'm okay. So I didn't drink out of it.
You'll be fine.
How are you feeling about it?
I already feel the disease just being
fantastic.
That Channel 5 Sky Sports heat. Neil Reynolds.
Seep it out of you.
Follow him on Twitter at Neil Reynolds NFL. Is that correct?
Yeah, thanks. Do you not follow me?
Off the top of my head. I probably do. And if I don't, I will rectify it. But I almost certainly do. And also Sky Sport. Everyone, we have so many overseas listeners. You know Neil. He's basically the Eisen out there. Wow. So thank you, Neil, for
on
joining
those
us.
words. Yeah, I'll take that.
And,
Thanks, Neil.
And I think Marc Sessler will be happy with the
I hope
that
I've
you've
done
made.
him. I hope he's okay with it.
And if he's mad about them, that's even better.
I'll be 6,000 miles away. By
All
then.
right, we'll take a break and then finish out the draft. All right, welcome back, Neil Reynolds. We saw him off. Greg, as we went to break, total panic over taking a sip of another man's water.
Just gotta take
oh
my
wait,
pick.
we have the foot. Wait, put that footage up. We have footage of the moment Greg takes the sip.
Oh,
this is good. This is why you got to watch the TV show on NFL Network and YouTube and watch as he takes the gulp of the water. He's enjoying it. He's washing it down.
See, I don't think I realized
he
it yet.
realizes it.
No,
No,
here's where I realized. Yeah, look at my face.
And I was like, oh, the germs are invading my soul and my body. You could see it. He's disgusted. He's not even hearing at that point.
I'm glad there's no close-up.
I wish we got to get the slow motion. Can we get a zoom
I mean,
slow motion before the end of the show? All right, let's get back to it. Yeah, did you have something else there?
No.
Snakes to you. We got 4 more games.
Ravens, Steelers, used to be the best rivalry in the league. Now it's not, but a little bit of juice here with Tyler
Sell
Huntley. Steelers 5-7. There's a lot of 5-7 teams around the NFL this week that I think have been better than their records. We've talked about that. The Steelers are one of them. They've statistically played like a top 10-ish offense, which is crazy, or top 10-ish defense,
I was going to
rather.
say, what am I missing?
No. A top 10 team overall since their bye.
Gotcha.
They had that nice game against Cincinnati, which I was impressed by their offense overall. Their defense has been rock solid. They did move the ball well against Atlanta, even if they scored. I think they showed something to themselves and to their coach over the last month that they can run the ball when they want to, and that's who they want to be. The run blocking has gotten better. Najee Harris is definitely running the ball better, but you're coming up against a Ravens team who I think specializes in run defense. I do believe in this Ravens defense a lot. I know they blew those late leads only once, really, since I think they changed their identity and have improved. And so I don't think this is a gimme win for either team. I picked the Steelers online. Who would you pick in this game if you were forced to pick games every week, Dan?
Yeah, I would pick the Steelers as well for the reasons you've mentioned. Their defense is really come along here. I think Pickett has not been someone that's blowing the doors off the league like a Justin Herbert a couple of years ago, or name the rookie that makes an immediate impact. But I think he's leading the team and maybe not at the level when Mac Jones was playing really well last year, but kind of in that club where it's like he's not holding the team back and he's making some plays. And Baltimore, I'm just not high on the Ravens right now at all. Even when Lamar was there, my faith had been shaken by too many failed performances, too many second-half collapses. And while I like and respect Huntley as a backup, I see them struggling to score points here. I think it's another team, like we talked about with the Bucs going to San Francisco. This feels like a 10-point week, 13-point week for the Ravens, and I think the Steelers find a way. And we have another, to me, like 17-13, 17-10, 20-14 type game.
I agree that it'll be close. It'll be low scoring. I believe Huntley played against the Steelers a year ago in week 17. It was a crazy game and that they ended up losing 16-13. He's always trying to lead these late comebacks.
16-13.
Right.
That's what this feels like.
He's not Lamar, obviously. He is very good at running for first downs. He had 5 running first downs last week. I thought he played as well as you could humanly play in a game where you only scored 10 points and had an interception last week. He doesn't throw the ball deep, though, like Lamar, deep on the outside.
That's how you're cutting the butter there, huh?
Yeah, he is more of kind of what we thought Mike White would be as a passer. He is that a lot of short stuff and point guard distributor, but that might be all they need. Ronnie Stanley looks like he's going to be back. That's really important for their offensive line, who also lost Patrick Macari, the other tackle. So it's like they lost both their tackles last week. Now you get one of them back. They have a chance to win this game. I think these two teams are close. If they don't, it gives the Bengals a real chance to go take charge of this division. And that 1 seed. The 1 seed is anyone that has 8 wins has a chance for the 1 seed.
Yeah.
The Dolphins have a chance for the 1 seed. The Bengals have a chance. The Ravens have a chance. Like, I don't think the Chiefs are going to slip up too much, so it's not that much of a chance. But this is a huge game for Baltimore.
I was with you. You were talking about the Browns earlier and, put their season to bed if Cincinnati can take care of them this week. There was a scenario briefly I was thinking about when Cleveland with Watson took care of Houston, and then it looked like the Ravens were going to get beat by Denver after Lamar went out, and then you were looking at that division and you're like, oh man, this could get interesting. Could Cleveland catch Baltimore? I think Baltimore could fade in the standings. I think it's a very, very strong chance here that Cincinnati ends up running away from with this division. And Pittsburgh, again, they're just improving. They're 3-1 since their bye, and I know this matters to Mike Tomlin. It matters to Steelers fans, I imagine. This streak of never having a losing season. They have the 5th easiest strength of schedule remaining among AFC teams. And I think
the hardest matchup is this one, which doesn't have Lamar.
I like them in this game. So I think the Steelers, I don't think they're going to make a push for the playoffs, but I thought this season for the Steelers was heading towards like just a real one of those ugly, grim 4-13 type seasons. If you would have talked to me about them 6 weeks ago, and they've really figured things out, and I think they're going to continue to show us that.
It's a stars and scrubs defense, but they have their stars playing well. Cameron Hayward's playing well. Alex Highsmith, I think, is now a star. Or at least he's a guy that you're going to give a long-term contract to. 10 sacks, playing really well. TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick. So that's like 4 really good defensive players. I don't know about the rest of the guys, but they're good enough.
All right, let's move now to the final Marc Sessler pick. Marc, of course, under the weather, but we have heard from him a couple times today, so that's always nice. Neil Reynolds is checked out, so let's have the Gravedigger make a selection for Marc.
Well, I think Marc has always talked about how he loves watching Patrick Mahomes play. And as much as he's also on the Titans bandwagon.
Well, you better not be a Romo game because he will knife you if you give him a Romo game.
Romo is actually your Jets this week.
Really?
Yeah. Can you believe that? Is that right?
Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yep,
no.
Would that have affected your draft choice?
I was pretty set on the Lions plus your Mr. Jets, but I wanted.
Don't Mr. Jets me. I've said many times on the show, I have no problem with people taking the
That might
game.
have. I didn't do my normal broadcaster preparation that I could have, which is look at the piece of paper you print for me. Thank you.
Yeah, that's why I knew that they were on the Jets.
I mean, although we have to worry about Graver's attention to detail here if he thinks that Marc loves watching Patrick Mahomes.
He's over. Yeah, Marc tends to like the less covered athletes, the ones that get a lot of primetime love and whatnot.
Okay.
But either way, this is a good pick.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chiefs at Broncos for Marc because there's no way.
Ian Eagle and Charles Davis is, no
That's great.
Small shakes. That's a great team.
Great
I'm
combo.
keeping Marc away from the Titans because of everything that's happened since he joined.
Oh, I see. That's really funny.
Well played there. Yes, he's been a bit of a poison there. But, so we're going with Chiefs Broncos, you said?
That's right.
Okay.
I like that the Chiefs have really worked on their running game. I know they didn't win that game last week, but when they ran it in the red zone on 3rd and 4, I was like, okay, Chiefs. And then some pretty good runs in key spots when the Bengals were kind of begging them to. And this is a game where, it's a mismatch, but the Broncos defense is great. And I think they'll do some of the things that a lot of defenses try to do against Kansas City, which is force them to run. And the Chiefs have shown they can do it now with Pacheco. And McKinnon. I like McKinnon better. That's all I got to say.
There's 3 4 p.m. games Eastern.
Yeah.
But now we have Marc taking 2 of them.
Oh, should I undo that?
Oh, Justin. We can do a post-show trade.
Me.
Can do a post-show trade and clean it up.
I don't always take everything into account that you guys do.
Justin, I bring you into my home. Give me my music, please.
Oh, yep. 1 second.
I bring you into my home. this podcast family we call ATN. And this is how you repay me? With this great act of disrespect I will not forget.
That's all I got.
We really need this, for everyone listening on the podcast to check out the TV show. Re-airs throughout the weekend just to see Dan Hanzus go for that Al Pacino Scent of a Woman Oscar.
That's Brando. But all right, let's then. Anything else we want to add to this game? I just want to say we've hit on the Broncos side of this pretty hard recently, but I'll say it again: 10 games with 1 touchdown or less, and the Russell Wilson storyline here. It's the biggest surprise in the NFL, I think, this year. What has happened to him and Denver and the expectations there. It still blows my mind when you watch them on offense, and I think I will slide and grab this game. Mark will understand, just so I can grab one of these late games. But I'm not going to enjoy it. It's not going to be fun. And the Chiefs, I feel like, could be more in that the mode they were against the Rams at Arrowhead, where it's just survive and advance type vibe. So I don't expect this to be a fun game. And the one thing I'll give credit to Denver on, Greggy, that their defense hasn't quit despite all the frustrations on that other side of the ball.
Last week was interesting for the Broncos. They have gone to the next level and not trusting Russell Wilson to throw the ball in a lot of situations. Running on 3rd and 5, every 3rd and long was a throw short of the sticks. But they did set up a few deep shots. I was skeptical of this assessment, but that probably was Russell Wilson's best game of the season, even though he only scored 9 points. I'm just saying.
No, he had that one game against the Raiders when we were in London. That was
he
legitimate.
was okay. I just mean he did a couple nice deep balls and didn't make any huge mistakes. Greg Dulcich has really come on as a nice option for them. And this Chiefs defense, they're not a pass rush team. Show us you can have a plus game Chiefs defense. You're going to have to try to go win the Super Bowl with this defense. If you can't make Russell Wilson look bad, then I'd start being worried.
Yeah. Did you know that the Broncos have won once since September 25th? Once. There were some people that saw them as a Super Bowl contender. I don't even want to go back and check out my season predictions because I think I had Wilson in the Offensive Player of the Year spot. I'll double check on that. All right. So why don't we flip this now? So let me grab that game. Let's make that we talked about the trade last week that Mark and I completed. This is the terms of the trade. I actually moved up 1 spot in this draft. I grabbed that. And now, Justin, you will take a game on behalf of Marc Sessler. You're back at it, kid.
All right. Mark loves games that end quickly, that he doesn't have to pay super close attention to. So let's give him Texans at Cowboys.
Yeah, he would like that. That's a blowout.
He would adore that game.
All right. My second try is a better try.
Now you have to provide, though, incredible analysis about this game
Astute.
Since you threw it out.
All right, let's see. The Cowboys have dominated.
Whenever it starts with "let's see,"
all
it's
right, let's see. The Cowboys are a team in Dallas, same state as the Texans.
The battle for
Football.
Texas, my home state.
It's an oblong ball.
How much analysis? Kyle Allen still playing? I saw Davis Mills said he was excited to get out there and hasn't lost his confidence.
Do we want to
talk?
Wait, Kyle Allen isn't playing.
Oh.
Come on,
No, he's benched.
Braver.
He's benched. He got
Davis
benched.
Mills is back, and
but it doesn't matter. They're the same person.
What I
Justin.
said applies, though. He said he hasn't lost his confidence, and he's excited to get back out.
He lost his job.
He should thank Kyle Allen. Davis Mills should buy him like the best Christmas presents because there is a difference. They're not the same. Kyle Allen was just
Disagree. Hard.
so bad. I watched that game and thought, man, they might have won that Browns game with Davis Mills just because at least, if nothing else, Kyle Allen made Davis Mills look like a long-term backup in the NFL, whereas I don't think Kyle Allen should be that guy.
Just give me this, Greggy. Can you tell me with absolute certainty you've ever seen Kyle Allen and Davis Mills in the same place at the same time?
No, but one of them has a huge neck, so they are distinctive in some ways. This will probably be an easy game for the Cowboys
prosthetics
to work on their thing.
This is Micah Parsons working on his Twitter issues. Like, this is a thing.
You're not digging Pass Rush Limbaugh? It's the best nickname of all time. Pass Rush Limbaugh.
Pass Rush Limbaugh. He was fired up about the Brittany Griner release from Russia. It's good to have Brittany back, though. Are you kidding me?
I was like, I was
Jesus.
genuinely
Jesus Christ.
almost emotional when I saw that. I don't know. That's been a long thing, and you got Christmas coming up.
Genuinely almost emotional.
I mean, I was
That's
emotional. It sounds like I'm playing to the crowd or something, but I was. It was great news to wake up to this morning.
It was very. This is my last 2 wake-ups, actually. Woke up on Wednesday morning, Aaron Judge back to the Yankees on a 900-year deal. I'm sure that will work out. The next day, Greiner's out.
Different in scope in terms of like importance to the people, but I
very important, both events.
I see what you're saying. You know what else is important?
Yes.
Cowboys, they lost Anthony Brown for the season.
They did.
Starting
The
cornerback to the Achilles. I've liked Deron Bland, who had those interceptions. But this is kind of it's perfect. They can work on like the things they're not happy with, except it's like a preseason game, except you get a win in the standings after it's over.
Did you see some of the I saw Joe Douglas trending also this morning, Greggy, and I was like, what is my GM trending? And it was all people just doing bits of how if he would have handled the negotiations of the Greiner release, the America would have gotten way more.
That's funny, but I also am annoyed by like the people who treat it as if it's some like trade deadline deal. They're like, "Whoa, what? You didn't get enough for the second round pick." It's like this is real life here. Just shut up.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. You've, as always, put it in proper perspective.
Okay, I'm gonna put one quick point in perspective from this game, and then we can move on. Dalton Schultz, Michael Gallup, like 13 targets last week, 56 yards. Dak actually didn't really have that good of a game throwing the ball despite all those points. I just want to see them be a little more consistent. Those 2 guys are really important now that we know OBJ is not coming, and I think we know it. That's their second and third receiver. They're going to need to be consistent, and it's been up and down. Like 1 week you think they're back, and then they're
Let's move on now. Last pick, right? Is that where we're at?
Yeah, we're at the Titans and Jaguars.
Okay, Titans and Jaguars. Actually, it could be a good game. Actually, I think it will. Justin, I think it'll be a close game. Now, the Jaguars got humbled a little bit. I wonder if they were a little high on their own supply after the way things closed out in Week 12 with that dramatic 2-point conversion to beat the Ravens, and everybody, including people in this room, talking up the game as the game that changed everything for the Jaguars. And, I'll cycle back to the point I made last week in this very show when I brought up Peyton Manning in '98 and his big game he had to beat a really good Jets team. Well, the next week he went to Buffalo and the Colts got killed. So it's not like it's a flip the switch and now the quarterback and that offense will always be good, but we've now seen it can happen at any time. And the Tennessee Tickle Monsters are going to really need to step up here, Justin, and put some pressure on Lawrence. And we're going to need, at some point, Justin, we're going to need your running back to break out of this funk and allow Ryan Tannehill to operate. And, we know Treylon Burks, he is still the concussion protocols at this time. Robert Woods hasn't made a big impact this year. You need Derrick Henry to break out of this and put up a big game.
Yeah, come on, D. Henber, where are you at? Hasn't really.
See,
got
I
off
think
to
you
a
might
hot
have jinxed
start.
it because of D. Hember.
I don't know if I have that much
It's
power.
more like
but-
D. Hover.
Oh, and we were also excited for D-Hem Burks, but that's now on pause because of the concussion. So a lot of creative puns.
Danico Autry's also out of practice.
Yep, still out.
Christian Fulton's out of practice. David Long's out of practice. And most importantly in this game, Trevor Lawrence is out of practice. Now, there was early optimism out of Jacksonville that he'll return to practice by the end of the week and can hopefully play. But I remember a certain team that's also playing in this game that gave some early week optimism about their quarterback who wasn't practicing, and then it turns out they were doing an okey-doke the whole time to get the other team to prepare or be confused.
And make our producer look foolish.
Right, that too.
Right
so
over his eyes.
I think there's a realistic chance C.J. Beathard is starting this game for the Jaguars, which would be a shame. unless you're a Titans fan.
I couldn't believe when I was watching the Jags. That looked bad when he got twisted down and bent the wrong way. Lawrence did, and when he went down in the Detroit game. I was surprised that he came back, to be quite honest with you.
And he ran really well. I wonder if he was shot up though. It's a toe injury, which I think is fascinating because those are usually lingering.
Mm-hmm. Could be the dreaded turf toe ligament damage in there. So, yeah. But I do. You know what I do? I think D. Hember. That would be my kind of something I feel good about, almost to the point where I would lock your guys. But because of everything that's happening with the Titans, of course, the general manager firing, and I think Vrabel, as we know, is a very good coach. Marc Sessler said at the top of the show, I think he's gonna circle the wagons here and have this team ready to play. And I think you're gonna be ready to cut this for the show on Sunday. I think we're going to get one of those monster Henry games. I'm thinking 150-plus rushing yards, multiple touchdowns, maybe a big reception as well, and that's going to be the difference in a Titans win that kind of settles things down after a really chaotic 2 weeks.
I love those predictions. It was Week 14, 2018, when Derrick Henry had his breakout game on Thursday Night Football, ran for those 4 touchdowns and 99-yard score. So we're out the same time of year against the same opponent.
This is prime D. Hember territory.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's crazy because I can remember where I was for that very game in the Culver City newsroom. Chris Wessling was on that night as well with me. I'm not as confident, though, about this game for the
Titans.
I'm
are
a little worried.
13-2 against the division since the start of 2020.
Is he gonna?
Is he gonna do it?
Is he gonna do it? Is he gonna believe?
I believe enough that
true believer.
This is gonna be a closer game than everyone thinks, but still, the Titans will pull it out. I'm locking it up.
That's a boy. There you go, Justin.
I believe it'll be a closer game than everyone thinks, but I'm locking it up. It's a 4-point spread.
That's good. That's a good job, Justin.
Justin knows what he's doing here. He knows he might get C.J. Beathard, and then the line moves. And
that's fine, too. You got to factor all these things
in. You're being sneaky.
Dan said that the Titans made me look foolish earlier. I've made myself look foolish enough. Now I'm in last place in the lock standings.
Ooh, you are.
Gotta get back.
Do we have
the
those standings?
column.
Can we take a look at them?
We could if we were. Yep, there they are.
Let's take a look. Greggy in first, but he betrayed me, so I'm going to come for him now. Zeuser 9-4, the defending champion. The Zeuser, you want to find the trophy? Head to Zeuser Manor. Go to my foyer. There it is, sitting
Not
on
if you want the
2019
or 2020 trophy.
You live in the
could
past.
be looking at a dynasty here.
You live in the past. Marc Sessler, 8-5. The West brothers, 7-6. And Gravedigger, sub 500. I don't know something about that producer chair. They don't quite. The game escapes them. And Justin is. Here's the thing. Justin's a very knowledgeable football fan, but something about that chair leads to madness when it comes to the lock game.
I told you I want you guys to be in first. You're the host of the show. You should be at the top.
Propping
of the
up our egos. I like that.
So
I think I was in last. I am worried. I just want to get this out. I think there's a dark timeline for the Titans where things completely fall apart.
So you don't believe in Vrabel.
Jeffrey Simmons is not looking the same. The offensive line is a mess. They just fired their GM, where they could be like an 8 or 9 win team in the playoffs still, but just that it doesn't go well.
I don't know about what happens at the end of the season, but I will tell you this, Justin, 27-13. Nice, relaxing dub. Henry a beast.
That would match the Titans' highest score of the point total of the season.
That's kind of what I think. not an elite offense. That's about the best they can do. All right, there you go. That is the draft. That is the program. Before we go, again, if you are in the Los Angeles area, hell, even if you're not in the Los Angeles area, we have our ATN Homecoming live show from the Bourbon Room in Hollywood. Wednesday, January 18th. Get your tickets, Ticketmaster, or anywhere else.
Love it. Good memory. We heard that our last mention sold some tickets, and they could be out before Christmas, so don't wait.
All right, there you go. Thank you to Neil Reynolds for his expert work. Thank you to Marc Sessler for popping in. That's he's a trooper. For the old boss and the grave digger and everyone behind the glass. Remember, be the call.